I had imagined that moment 100 times me. Pulling up to Grandpa George's old cabin with the keys in hand, the crisp mountain air filling my lungs, a quiet future just beginning. He'd always said the cabin was mine one day.
This
Place has your soul in it, he told me the summer before he passed. It wasn't just a structure, it was a legacy. Wood walls that had absorbed our laughter, screened porch nights with fireflies dancing at the edge of the tree line. So when the attorney called to confirm that the cabin was officially mine, no contest, no complications, I left work early, packed my overnight bag, and made the 3-hour drive with a full heart. But when I pulled up the gravel path, tires crunching, heart pounding, I froze. There was a car in the driveway. Not just any car, a baby blue SUV with a baby on board. Stickers slapped onto the rear window. The front door was wide open. I got out slowly, cautiously, already uneasy. The swing on the porch creaked gently in the breeze, like it always had. Everything looked normal, but it wasn't. Because someone else was here. I stepped inside. The scent hit me first. Not the usual mix of pine and cedar and dust, but something sweeter. Vanilla, maybe. Then I saw them, nursery decorations. Streamers, pastel balloons, a folded-up crib still in its box near the fireplace. Someone was moving in, not visiting, not squatting. Claiming, "Excuse me?" I called out, my voice sharp. "Hello?" From the hallway, a woman appeared, probably in her late 20s, visibly pregnant, barefoot, with a startled expression like I was the one intruding. She clutched her belly instinctively and said, "Oh, you must be Brooke. Jason said you wouldn't be here until next week." Jason. My heart dropped. Jason was my sister's husband, a guy I'd barely tolerated at family dinners. Always a little smug, always a little too comfortable talking over people. I hadn't seen him since Grandpa's funeral. And now suddenly a woman not my sister was in my cabin, dropping his name like it gave her permission to be here. "I'm sorry, who are you?" I asked, trying to keep my tone level. "I'm Hazel," she said quickly. "Jason's partner. We were setting up the nursery. He said this place was available." My head spun. Jason's partner? Not my sister? What the hell was going on? I didn't want to take it out on Hazel. She looked genuinely confused, maybe even scared. But my hands were already shaking, fists balling up at my sides. "This cabin belongs to me," I said slowly. "I inherited it. There's no rental agreement. No availability. This is my home now, and you're trespassing." Her face fell, then flushed. "Jason said he handled all that. He told me it was a family thing. He said you weren't using it, and that—" She trailed off. I took a shaky breath and walked into the kitchen, needing space between us before I said something I'd regret. Everything was different. My grandmother's teacups were gone. Her handmade curtains replaced with cheap ones from Target. My chest tightened. This wasn't just an intrusion. It was a takeover. Hazel followed me slowly. "Please, I didn't know." "Jason said his grandfather left this to the family. He said your name was just on the deed for legal reasons." I nearly laughed. "My grandfather left this to me, Hazel. In his will. There's no ambiguity. I have the documents in my car." She blinked. "Jason told me he was working it out. With you." "No, he wasn't." I turned to face her fully now. "He didn't even have the decency to call me." That was when it clicked. This wasn't some misunderstanding. Jason didn't just forget to tell Hazel the truth. He'd lied to her, deliberately, spun some story that made him the rightful caretaker of the cabin. Like he could quietly install himself here with his secret girlfriend and start over. My sister, his wife, didn't know about any of this. "I was sure of that. I'm sorry," Hazel said, her voice cracking. "I really didn't know. And you know what? I believed her, but that didn't mean she could stay." "Look," I said, trying to steady my voice. "I don't blame you. But Jason had no right. And you can't be here. I need you to pack up." I need to call him," she said, reaching for her phone with trembling hands. "Do that," I said. "Tell him he has about 20 minutes to explain himself before I call the sheriff." I stepped outside onto the porch while she made the call. The sun had dipped low behind the trees, casting long shadows over the grass. My stomach was in knots. Rage simmered beneath my skin, but it was something deeper than anger. It was betrayal. My grandfather had trusted me with this cabin. And Jason, who never cared about it, who once joked that it was just an old shack in the woods, had hijacked it like it was his backup plan. And the worst part,
he didn't even have the guts
to face me. Hazel came out 10 minutes later, eyes red, suitcase in hand. He's not answering, she said quietly. I'm so sorry, Brooke. I'll leave. I didn't know. I nodded stiffly. Thank you. As she drove away, I stood in the driveway, arms crossed, jaw clenched. This wasn't over. Jason had tried to steal something sacred, not just a property, but a piece of my past, my identity, my peace, and I wasn't going to let him get away with it. After Hazel left, I stood in the middle of the cabin, surrounded by half-assembled baby furniture and lies. The silence was deafening, like the walls were holding their breath. I dropped my bag, sat on the edge of the couch that used to belong to my grandparents, and stared at the floor. This place had always been a sanctuary. A space where I learned to fish, where Grandpa George would sit on the porch and tell me stories about how he built the place board by board after the war.
He didn't have much, but he had pride in this cabin.
And he always said it would be mine someday. Not mine as in available for family use, not mine as in legally but not emotionally.
He meant mine, period, the day before he died.
He grabbed my hand from the hospital bed. His voice was barely more than a rasp, but his eyes were clear. Don't let anyone take that place from you, Brooke. Not your mom, not your sister, not that smug son-in-law. You understand me? At the time, I brushed it off as paranoia. Family stuff was messy, but Jason, he barely cared about the cabin. Or so I thought. Now it was all starting to make sense. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up pacing the creaky wooden floors, trying to wrap my head around what Jason was thinking. I had no answers, just questions, and a gut-deep feeling that this wasn't just about the cabin. It was about control. It was about erasing me from the picture. And maybe it had been in the works for longer than I realized. By morning, I was angry. And more than that, I was determined. I drove into town to talk to the lawyer who handled Grandpa George's estate, just to make sure everything was airtight. The will was clear as day. I leave the property located at 232 Three Pines Road to my granddaughter, Brooke Ellen Voss, sole owner. No shared interest. There were initials, dates, notarizations. No loopholes, but when I asked if anyone else had tried to contest the will or ask questions, the lawyer looked up slowly from his computer. Your brother-in-law came in a week after the will was filed, he said. Jason. Don Hamilton, right? I nodded. He asked if there was any room for family negotiation. Wanted to know if the property could be transferred for family planning purposes, whatever that means. I told him flat out unless you agreed. It wasn't happening. I clenched my fists under the table. And he didn't mention that to me, of course, the lawyer frowned. Do you want me to send a cease and desist letter? No, I said slowly. Not yet, but thank you. I wasn't going to play defense. I was going to confront him. I drove straight to my sister's house. I hadn't called ahead. Part of me hoped Jason wouldn't be home. Part of me hoped he would be. My sister Megan answered the door, her face lighting up before she registered the storm behind my eyes. Brooke! Wow, hey, what's going on? Is Jason home? Her smile faltered. No, he's at work. Can we talk? She stepped aside, ushering me into the kitchen. It smelled like cinnamon rolls and morning cartoons. Her two kids were glued to the TV. It was domestic perfection, except my brother-in-law was trying to steal from me behind the scenes. I found someone in my cabin yesterday, I said flatly. A woman named Hazel, pregnant, decorating a nursery. Megan's jaw dropped. Wait, what? She said Jason told her the cabin was available, that I wasn't using it, that it was a family property. She sat down slowly, color draining from her face. Brooke, I didn't know. Jason told me he was talking to you about using it as a rental for a few months. I didn't even know there was another woman. There it was. The ugly truth starting to crawl into the light. I don't think Hazel knows about you, I said carefully. She looked completely blindsided when I told her the truth. Megan didn't say anything for a long time. Then she whispered, I knew he was lying about something. I just didn't know it was this. I wanted to hug her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call Jason and put him on speaker so he'd be forced to explain himself to both of us at once. But mostly, I felt sad. My grandfather's last gift had become a wedge between all of us. I'm sorry, Meg, I said finally. But this cabin? It's not negotiable. It's mine. Grandpa made that clear. She nodded slowly, swallowing back tears. You don't need to explain. I didn't know. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. She picked it up, glanced at the screen, and froze. It's Jason, she said. He's calling me. Answer it, I said. She put it on speaker. Hey, Jason's voice came through, casual and confident as ever. I just wanted to give you a heads up Brooke might show up soon throwing a fit. Just smile and nod, okay? She's being dramatic. Megan looked at me. My jaw clenched so tight I could feel my molars press. She's here, Megan said, her voice ice. She's sitting right in front of me, and she knows everything. There was a beat of silence, then Jason said, Well, that's unfortunate. We'll sort it out. No need to blow this out of proportion. Oh, it's already blown, I snapped, leaning closer to the phone. You lied to Hazel. You tried to sneak your way into property that doesn't belong to you. And if you so much as set foot on that land again, I will get the sheriff involved. He sighed. You're being emotional. No, I said, voice steady. I'm being legal. I hung up. Megan sat back in her chair, stunned. I'm so sorry. I know, I said softly. But this isn't just about a cabin. He crossed a line. And I'm not letting him do it again. The silence after I hung up on Jason was deafening. Megan sat across from me, her face pale and unreadable, fingers curled tightly around her coffee mug. The cinnamon sugar sent from earlier had turned sour in the tension. Her eyes were distant, like she was sifting through every memory of her husband and reevaluating it in real time. You okay? I asked gently. She blinked a few times, then nodded too quickly. Yeah, no, I don't know. She pushed her mug aside. I thought he was working late, or on work trips. But now I'm realizing he might have been with her, with Hazel. I didn't say anything. Sometimes silence said more than any lecture ever could. She finally looked at me again. How pregnant is she? 7 months, maybe 8. Megan's mouth fell open slightly. That lines up. She swallowed hard. That's right around the time he missed our anniversary because of a last-minute business conference. God, I felt like I'd just handed her a grenade, and she was holding it in her lap with no idea what to do next. I don't know what to do, she whispered. Then don't decide right now, I said. You just found out your husband has a second life, maybe even a second family. Breathe. We'll figure this out. But the storm was only just beginning. Later that afternoon, after leaving Megan's house, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to answer. Hello? Hi, is this Brooke? The voice was quiet, hesitant, familiar. Yes, who's this? It's Hazel, I froze. My hand tightened around the phone. How did you get my number? Jason gave it to me, she said. He told me not to call you, but I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I walked to the back porch and sat down on the wooden swing, letting the boards creak under me.
You okay? There was a pause. Not really, I left him.
My breath caught. You what? After you left yesterday, I tried to talk to him. He told me you were lying, that the cabin was his, that the will was fake. But he wouldn't show me anything, wouldn't answer real questions. So I went through his stuff. Her voice cracked. Brooke, he lied about everything, not just the cabin. He told me he was divorced. He said you were just his crazy ex-cousin trying to screw him over in court. I couldn't help it. I let out a dry, stunned laugh. Ex-cousin? I'm his wife's sister. I know that now, Hazel whispered. I found photos, letters, his tax forms, your grandfather's will. All of it was in a folder labeled, just in case. Like he knew the lie would catch up to him eventually. I stood up, pacing, the nerve. The sheer calculation. Jason hadn't stumbled into a mistake. He'd architected a double life. One where he could manipulate Hazel, use her to pressure his way into the cabin, and pretend to play house in a life built on betrayal. Hazel kept talking. He told me you never used the place. That you were flaky and dramatic, and that he was cleaning it up for the baby. He said you abandoned your family and didn't care about anyone but yourself. I felt like I was going to be sick. He's been poisoning people against me for years. She was crying now. I feel so stupid. I had no idea he was married. I didn't even know his real last name until last night. You're not stupid, I said, softer now. You were lied to. You trusted someone you loved. That's not your fault, Hazel sniffled. I'm sorry I invaded your home. I had no idea what I was stepping into. I know, I said. It's not your fault. But now we're both in it, whether we like it or not. She took a breath. I want to help however I can. I don't want him to hurt anyone else. That was the moment something shifted. I'd expected Hazel to vanish, take her bruised pride, and disappear. But instead, she wanted to help. She wanted to make things right. Maybe because Jason had used her too. Maybe because she knew what it felt like to be manipulated and silenced. Or maybe just maybe because she didn't want her baby to grow up with the kind of father who would burn down his own family for a free place to live. We talked for another hour. She told me more than I wanted to know. About how Jason had kept her isolated. How he talked constantly about legacy and property and control. How he had once mentioned that, if Brooke gets in the way, I have leverage. What kind of leverage?
I asked, chilled. I don't know, she said.
But he had a manila envelope he said he was saving in case he needed to get legal. It had your name on it. I didn't look inside. I exhaled. Jason was preparing for war, now that I knew. I had no choice but to do the same. After we hung up, I sat on the swing for a long time, watching the light shift through the trees. I wasn't just dealing with a property dispute anymore. This was deeper, uglier, personal. Jason had lied to me, lied to my sister, lied to Hazel. And now his whole web of deception was unraveling. I thought Jason would back off after Hazel left him. I thought maybe, just maybe, the tangled mess he'd created would finally start to collapse on its own. But that's not the kind of man Jason is. When he loses control, he doesn't retreat. He doubles down. The morning after Hazel and I spoke, I packed up my things and headed back to the cabin. I hadn't planned to stay there full time, but now, I wasn't taking chances. I wanted eyes on the property. And frankly, I needed time in the one place that still felt like mine. The gravel crunched under my tires as I turned onto Three Pines Road. But even before I reached the driveway, I knew something was wrong. The birdsong that usually welcomed me was drowned out by the low rumble of engines. Two moving trucks were parked in front of the cabin, big ones. I slammed the brakes. For a few long seconds I just sat there, hands on the wheel, heart pounding. Then I saw Jason standing on the porch, like he owned the place. Clipboard in hand, barking orders at the movers. I got out of the car slowly, like I was walking into a minefield. What the hell do you think you're doing? I called out. He turned, smiled like I was a neighbor showing up to a barbecue. Hey, Brooke. Perfect timing, we're getting things organized. I laughed. Actually laughed. But there was no humor in it. You are literally trespassing. This place is family property, he said, waving vaguely at the trees like he was quoting scripture. Grandpa would have wanted the cabin to be used, not sit here like a museum. I marched right up the steps. Let me make this crystal clear, I said. No, you don't own the mountain, he scoffed. You can't keep people from using land that's been in the family for generations. But I do own this cabin, I shot back. Every board, every shingle. And if you don't leave right now, I'm calling the sheriff. Jason took a slow step toward me. His smile vanished. You really think you can scare me? He said, voice low. You're just a spoiled brat who got lucky in a will. I built more of this family than you ever did. I could smell the audacity on him. Like gasoline waiting for a spark. That's funny, I said. Because the only thing you've built is a criminal case for unlawful entry. One of the movers was standing awkwardly near the truck, holding a rolled-up rug. Is this gonna be a problem? Jason turned to him with that salesman grin. Just a little family disagreement. We're good. No, we're not, I said. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Jason's eyes flicked to my screen. You're calling the cops? Seriously? I put the phone to my ear. Yes, Jason, seriously. He started to protest, but I turned away and gave dispatch the address, telling them exactly what was happening. The woman on the line promised to send someone out. You'll regret this, Jason muttered behind me. I already regret trusting you, I said. This is me taking it back. 20 minutes later, a sheriff's deputy pulled up. Officer Griffin, local guy. I remembered him from town parades growing up. He stepped out of his cruiser, took one look at the scene, the trucks, the movers, me visibly shaking, and walked over with measured calm. Ma'am, he nodded at. You the property owner? Yes, I said, handing him a copy of the will and deed I'd started carrying with me. This man broke into my home after I explicitly told him he was not welcome. He's trying to move in, and he changed the locks. Jason started to speak, but Griffin held up a hand. Sir, I'll get your side in a moment.
He scanned the
documents, then turned back to Jason. You got any legal claim to this place? Jason shrugged. I'm married to her sister. We're family. That's not how ownership works, Griffin said flatly. If she says you're not allowed here and you're not on the deed, you're trespassing. Jason clenched his jaw. Sir, Griffin continued, voice firm now, this is a formal warning. Pack up your things and leave the premises. If you step foot here again without her permission, we'll press charges. Clear? Jason stared at
him, then at me. This isn't over, he said quietly. Yeah, I said.
It is.
He signaled to the movers, who looked immensely relieved, and started reloading the truck. Officer Griffin waited until the last box was back in the trailer before walking over to me again. I'd suggest changing your locks again, and maybe installing a camera system. Already on it, I said. He paused. You doing okay? I will be. I said, thanks. When the last truck pulled away, I stood alone on the porch, gripping the new keys I'd had made the week before. The silence returned, heavier now. Like the land was exhaling after being violated, I locked the door behind me, then sank onto the floor inside, overwhelmed. This wasn't just a family drama anymore. This was a legal battle. A safety issue, a declaration of war. And even with the law on my side, I knew Jason wasn't done, but neither was I. It had been 4 days since Jason and the moving trucks were forced off my property. I'd changed the locks, installed a ring camera, bought a thick deadbolt that looked like it belonged in a bank vault. But none of that prepared me for what happened next. Hazel showed up at the cabin again. No trucks this time. No Jason. Just her. I saw her from the window, her small frame carrying that very noticeable baby bump, trudging slowly up the gravel path with a backpack on one shoulder and what looked like a folder in her hand. She paused at the porch like she wasn't sure whether to knock or turn around and disappear into the woods. I opened the door before she could decide. Hazel? She looked up, startled, then gave me a nervous nod. Hi. I took a long breath. The last time she'd been here, she was unknowingly squatting in my home with the man who was trying to steal it from me. Now she looked different, smaller, sadder, but maybe clearer too. I'm not here to cause trouble, she said quickly. I didn't know where else to go. Can I talk to you? I stepped aside and motioned her in. Yeah, come in. She entered slowly, like someone stepping into a church or a crime scene. Maybe both. She looked around, eyes flicking to the rocking chair near the fireplace, the bookshelf Grandpa built, the quilt I'd just spread on the couch. You cleaned it up, she said quietly. I kept it clean, I replied. It's mine, remember? She winced. I know. I'm sorry for everything. I should have asked more questions. Should have seen through him sooner. I folded my arms. So why are you here? Hazel placed the folder down on the coffee table and unzipped her backpack, pulling out a worn-out notebook. I wanted you to see this. And to tell you the truth, all of it. I didn't trust myself to. She opened the notebook and began flipping through pages of handwritten entries. After we talked, I left him. I've been staying at a friend's trailer outside of town. But I couldn't stop thinking about how he used both of us. How he manipulated me into thinking this was his place, his legacy. I nodded slowly. He's good at that. Lying with confidence. She looked up at me. I went through every document he ever gave me. I kept records, notes, conversations, because for a while I thought I was building a life with him. And I wanted to remember everything, but now I realize I was documenting evidence. My gaze narrowed. Evidence? Hazel turned the notebook toward me and pointed at a few key entries. Jason's timeline of when he claimed he divorced Megan, notes about what he told his lawyer, the realtor, and the bank. Copies of fake emails he sent pretending to be Brooke's representative, trying to sell the cabin outright. I blinked. He tried to sell the cabin without even owning it. Hazel nodded. He had a fake POA power of attorney document. Said it was signed by you? It wasn't, obviously. My stomach twisted. That's fraud. She nodded again. Exactly. I'm willing to testify. To turn this over to your lawyer, the sheriff, whoever. I stared at her for a long moment. This was the same woman who had been sleeping in my bed less than 2 weeks ago.
The same woman.
Who I had once considered kicking out onto the cold porch because she was part of Jason's little power play. But now she was sitting on my couch, offering me the key to taking him down. Why help me? I asked. You could just walk away and start over. No courtroom, no drama. Hazel looked down at her belly. Because this kid deserves better. Because I deserve better. And because you didn't have to let me in today, but you did. I sat, finally. The tension in my shoulders ached like it had been cemented there. Hazel, I said carefully. You know I was ready to have you arrested. You were in my house, hanging up baby clothes like it was yours. She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. I know, and I would have deserved it. I let him talk me into believing a lie. I was desperate, lonely, and he made me feel safe. Until he didn't. She paused. But you weren't cruel to me. Not even when you had every right to be. That meant something. Something broke open in me then. Not anger, not even pity, just a quiet, tired sadness. For Hazel, for myself. For all the women who get tricked by charm wrapped around poison. I looked at the folder. You really kept all of this?
I did?
Then I believe you, I said. Hazel reached into her backpack and pulled out a tiny baby onesie. It was soft yellow with pine trees and canoes on it. I was going to leave this in the nursery, she said, before I knew. I held the little outfit in my hands. My throat closed. You keep it, I said. She nodded and stood up. I'll be in touch and thank you for not treating me like the enemy. You weren't, I said quietly.
He was?
Hazel left without another word, walking slowly back down the path until she disappeared into the tree line. I sat there for a long time after that. Notebook in my lap, the weight of it heavier than I could explain. This war wasn't over, but now I had an ally. The journal Hazel left me, along with her quiet confession, wasn't just a pile of notes. It was a smoking gun, emails Jason faked, conversations he recorded, copies of bank transactions that made no legal sense. All of it, neatly cataloged by the very woman he thought he was manipulating. She'd been documenting his crimes while thinking she was building a family. I spent that entire night scanning every page, highlighting connections, building a timeline. And by morning, I knew what I had to do. So I drove back into town with the folder in my passenger seat like it was radioactive. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was ready. Ready to end this. When I got to the sheriff's office, I asked to speak to Deputy Griffin, the same officer who'd forced Jason off the property. He remembered me instantly. You again, he said with a half smile. That cabin's getting more action than the diner these days. I dropped the folder on his desk. Then this should spice things up even more. He opened it slowly, flipping through a few pages. The shift in his expression was subtle at first, eyebrows twitching, mouth tightening, but by the time he reached Hazel's handwritten timeline and the fake power of attorney Jason had used to try and sell my grandfather's cabin, Griffin sat back in his chair like someone had punched the air out of him. Damn, he muttered. Yeah, I said. I want to press charges, trespassing, attempted fraud. Forgery, if we can swing it, and I want a restraining order.
He looked at me, eyes steady now. You're serious?
I've never been more serious. Griffin leaned forward, pulled out a legal pad, and started writing. Let's make it official. 3 days later, Jason came back, but not in the way he expected. I was on the porch when the cruiser pulled up. Griffin stepped out first. Then Jason, wearing a wrinkled dress shirt and forced bravado, handcuffed at the wrists. He wasn't arrested yet. But Griffin had made it clear. This was the last straw. This was the ultimatum. Jason sneered at me. So this is what we're doing now? Turning family over to the cops? Griffin cut in before I could answer. You're lucky that's all she's doing right now. Jason turned to him, incredulous. You think she's innocent in all this? She's manipulating everyone. Griffin raised a hand. Enough. You've been warned, legally, documented, witnessed, step foot on this property again, and you're looking at jail time. Jason's jaw clenched. It's just a cabin. No, I said, stepping forward. It's my cabin. And it's not about the wood or the nails, it's about respect. Something you clearly never learned. Griffin uncuffed him and handed him a thick envelope. That's your formal no-contact order. Any violation is a Class A misdemeanor. You understand? Jason didn't answer.
He stared at me, no smile, no smugness, just pure cold hate.
It didn't scare me this time. It made me stand taller. He finally muttered, "This isn't over." Before walking toward his car like it owed him something, Griffin waited until the door slammed before turning to me. You okay? I nodded, exhaling a breath I hadn't realized. I was holding. I am now. He tipped his hat.
He comes back, you call me directly. We'll take it from there.
As the cruiser pulled away, dust curling in the late afternoon sun, I realized how quiet it had become. Not the tense, waiting for a storm, quiet but peaceful, earned inside. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat at Grandpa George's table, the restraining order in one hand, Hazel's folder in the other. This was no longer just about a cabin. It was about breaking a cycle of control, lies, and manipulation. It was about drawing a hard line and saying, this far. No further. Later that evening, Hazel texted me. Did it happen? Yeah, I wrote back. He got served. Good. I'll be ready if they need my statement. I stared at her message for a long time. A strange sort of peace settled in my chest. Because, for the first time since this all began, I wasn't alone. I thought I knew everything there was to know about my grandfather, Grandpa George. Was solid, predictable, the kind of man who read the same newspaper every morning and kept his fishing gear in pristine order.
He built the cabin with his bear.
Hands stained every floorboard himself, and carved our names into the old pine just outside the porch mine right next to his. Like I was always meant to be part of that place, but even the people you love most can surprise you after they're gone. It started with a creak in the floorboard. I was organizing some old boxes in the attic, trying to sort through what was worth keeping, and what could finally be let go, when I stepped on a loose plank near the window. It shifted beneath my boot just slightly, enough to make me pause. I knelt down and pried it open. Inside was a small, dust-covered metal tin, just big enough to fit a book, and that's exactly what was in it. A leather-bound journal, worn smooth along the edges, like someone had thumbed through it over and over again. On the inside cover, in Grandpa's unmistakable blocky handwriting, it said, "To Brooke, if you found this, you were meant to." I didn't breathe for a long moment. Then I sat down right there on the attic floor and started to read. The entries weren't just reflections. They were confessions. He wrote about the cabin, how it was his sanctuary, the place that helped him survive losing my grandmother. He wrote about how he'd planned to leave it to my mom originally, but changed his mind when she married my dad, a man he didn't trust. She stopped coming after the wedding, he wrote. But Brooke never did. She's got my hands. My stubborn streak, this place belongs to her. He detailed how Jason, my sister's husband, had visited the cabin without me knowing while Grandpa was still alive. Had come asking about property rights. Had tried to convince him to sell. For the family's future.
He wants to make money, not memories, Grandpa wrote.
Told him no, then told him to leave. I stared at that sentence for 5 minutes. Jason had been here before all of this started. He had a long con in the works, even when I thought everything was normal. Then I found the final entry written just 2 days before Grandpa passed. If Jason comes sniffing around again, don't trust him. If Megan takes his side, don't trust her either. And if you're reading this, Brooke, don't let them steal what I gave you. This cabin is your spine when the world gets loud. Don't bend, don't give in. You've always been stronger than you think. My throat tightened. I had to close the journal for a second, just to breathe. I'd spent weeks feeling like I was fighting alone. Like maybe I was being too harsh, too protective, but Grandpa had seen this coming. And he left me a message that was part warning, part love letter. I ran my hand over the leather cover like I was touching his hand. He knew me better than anyone. That night, I lit a fire in the cabin hearth for the first time since this all began. I placed the journal on the table. Put on the old flannel shirt Grandpa used to wear. Made a cup of black coffee the way he liked it, no sugar. Just a pinch of cinnamon. I felt him in that room. In the walls. In the silence. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what Jason might try next. Because now, I had more than Hazel's notebook or a restraining order. I had proof that this cabin wasn't just a piece of property. It was mine. Because it had always been part of me. The next morning, I scanned the journal and sent copies to my lawyer. She called within the hour. This changes everything, she said. That journal doesn't just confirm your ownership, it documents intent. That's legal gold. I smiled. I thought so too. She paused. Brooke, are you okay? It was such a simple question. But it hit me hard. Yeah, I said. I actually think I am. Later that day, Hazel stopped by. She saw the journal on the table and raised an eyebrow. What's that? Grandpa's final word, I said, sliding it over. She read a few pages, her expression softening with each one.
He really loved you, yeah, I said, blinking fast. He really did.
Hazel looked up. Jason never stood a chance. Did he? I smiled faintly. Not anymore. We sat on the porch together in silence for a while, watching the wind move through the trees like breath. There was peace now. Not because the fight was over, but because I knew why I was fighting. I should have known Jason wouldn't go quietly. People like him never do. They don't accept loss, and they definitely don't accept being exposed. After the restraining order, after Hazel's departure, and after Grandpa George's journal gave me the upper hand, Jason had nothing left. So he did what cowards do. He lawyered up. The letter came by certified mail. Thick envelope. Legal letterhead. My name spelled out like a threat on the top of the page. Cease and desist. Unauthorized use of real property. I stared at it in disbelief. According to Jason and his bottom-of-the-barrel attorney, the cabin was a contested estate, and I was occupying it without proper legal authority. They were demanding I vacate within 30 days or face a lawsuit for damages and emotional distress. Emotional distress? From the man who faked documents, lied to his girlfriend, broke into my property, and tried to sell my inheritance behind my back. I laughed. Out loud. Alone at the kitchen table. It was the kind of laugh that comes after months of gaslighting, threats, manipulation, and realizing the person trying to break you doesn't even have a leg to stand on. I called my attorney that same afternoon. She didn't laugh, but she smiled. I could hear it in her voice. Let me guess, she said. Jason finally grew a backbone, or at least found someone to rent one. He's threatening to sue, I said, reading through the letter again. Says I'm in violation of inheritance law. He has no standing. Zero. This is a bluff, Brooke. She already had copies of the will, the deed, Hazel's documentation, and most importantly, Grandpa George's journal, clearly stating his intent to leave the cabin to me and explaining why. But, she continued, we're going to do better than ignore it. We're going to destroy it. Legally? Oh. No, legally and publicly. You up for that? I felt something shift in my chest. That familiar fire, the one Jason thought he'd stamped out. Hell yes, I said. Let's finish this. The plan was simple, elegant, brutal, We drafted a formal response, legal, airtight, and devastating. Attached to it were exhibits. Copies of Jason's forged documents, Hazel's statement, proof of trespassing, police reports, restraining order, and a financial summary showing Jason was tens of thousands in debt. Credit cards maxed. A second mortgage on their house. A pending collections lawsuit. From a failed business venture he never told anyone about. It painted a clear picture. This wasn't about the cabin. It was about money, desperation, control, and we weren't just sending it to his lawyer. We were forwarding copies to Megan, my sister, to his workplace, and to the county clerk's office where he'd tried filing fake documents months earlier. We were making sure. Everyone saw it. 3 days later, Jason called. I didn't pick up, then came the texts. You really think this is over? You're insane, Brooke. You're tearing this family apart. Then finally, Megan left. Hope you're happy. I stared at that message for a long time, and then quietly the next morning. Megan showed up at the cabin. I watched her pull into the gravel driveway, alone this time. No car seat. No, Jason, just her and a pitiful bouquet of gas station flowers. I didn't open the door right away. When I finally did, I didn't smile. Do you want something? She stood there, eyes red, trying to compose herself. I read. The journal, she said softly. Hazel emailed it to me. I nodded. Good. And the legal stuff, everything. She paused. I didn't know. Not really. I leaned against the doorway. Didn't know or didn't want to. She looked down, both. We stood in silence for a while, the wind rustling the trees above us. I'm sorry, she finally said. I should have believed you. I didn't answer right away. I didn't know how to. Part of me wanted to slam the door. The other part, my grandfather's part, wanted to give her one last chance. He's gone for good, she added. Took off last night. No idea where. Good, I said. She handed me the flowers. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I miss you. I took them. Not because I forgave her yet, but because maybe I could, someday. I miss who you used to be, I said. But I'm not letting anyone hurt me again to keep the peace. She nodded. Fair. And then she left. That night, I stood on the porch, holding the journal, watching the sun dip behind the tree line. Everything was quiet again, not just around me, but inside me. I'd fought like hell for this place, for my peace, for truth. Now Jason was gone. Megan was waking up.
And
I was free. Not just the cabin, me. It had been weeks since I had heard from Hazel. After Jason's public meltdown, the cease and desist, and the explosion of his financial secrets, she'd vanished. Packed up her things, left town, and stopped responding to texts. I figured she'd gone somewhere to start over, to protect herself and the baby from the storm he had dragged her into, and honestly, I hoped she had, but I never expected her to come back. It was late afternoon when I heard the soft knock at the cabin door. I almost didn't answer. I'd been savoring the quiet lately, taking walks in the woods, restoring old furniture Grandpa left behind, rediscovering peace on my own terms, but something told me to look. When I pulled open the door, she was there, Hazel. Hair tied back, dark circles under her eyes, one hand resting on the curve of her very pregnant belly. Hey, she said quietly. I didn't know where else to go. I let her in. I didn't offer coffee. I didn't ask how she was. I just watched her slowly lower herself into Grandpa's old armchair, like her bones ached in places beyond muscle. Like the weight she carried wasn't just the baby, it was everything Jason had left behind. She looked up at me with a cautious smile. I'm not here to fight. Good, I said. Because I don't have anything left to give a fight, she exhaled. I guess I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm sorry. I raised an eyebrow. For which? Her face flushed. For everything. For believing him, for helping him, for being part of it. I didn't know. But I should have. And when I did find out, it was already a mess. I sat across from her, folding my arms. So, why now? Because the baby's coming, she said. And I don't want her to grow up in a lie. I want her to know what it means to stand up for the truth even when it's messy. Even when you're ashamed. Her voice cracked. I was.
Ashamed.
And suddenly something in me softened because I saw myself in her. The girl who tried to hold everything together while someone else unraveled it all behind her back. Who gave the benefit of the doubt, even when the doubt kept burning her. She wasn't my enemy anymore. She was just another woman who'd been lied to, manipulated, used up by the same man. We talked for hours. Hazel told me everything. How Jason had convinced her the cabin was a family inheritance up for grabs. How he'd claimed I was unstable and out of control. How he'd promised they'd raise the baby there, far from his toxic in-laws.
He said you were obsessed with the cabin, she said. That you'd lost touch with reality.
I let out a bitter laugh. That sounds like him. I believed him, she whispered. Until I saw the truth. Until I felt it. This place wasn't just yours. It was sacred. I felt it the moment I stepped inside. She paused, then added, I should have left sooner. Maybe, I said. But you did leave. That counts for something. Hazel wiped her eyes. You could have had me arrested. Or thrown out without a word. But you didn't. I almost did, I admitted. She nodded. I wouldn't have blamed you. Silence fell over us again. The wind outside pushed through the trees in soft waves. Inside, everything felt still, calm, like two storms had finally spent themselves. Then, she said something that surprised me. I want to help you restore it. I blinked. What? This cabin, she said. It's not just a place. It's a legacy. You saw that first. But now I see it too. I want to be part of protecting it. I hesitated. Why? Because I want my daughter to know strong women, honest ones, fighters. She looked at me and added, you don't have to say yes, I get it. But if there's any way I can help paint a wall, fix a window, plant a tree, I want to. I looked at her, really looked, and saw a woman who had survived something terrible. Who wasn't perfect, but who was trying, and maybe that was enough over the next few weeks. Hazel became a quiet fixture at the cabin. We fixed the porch steps together. Sanded down the old swing Grandpa built. Planted tomatoes in the back cabin. Tomatoes, she called them, laughing. She even helped me sort through old photo boxes, labeling them carefully with names and dates. There were still moments of tension, of silence, of things unspoken, but something was building in their place. Trust. Not overnight. Not blind, but real. One morning, she showed up with a folded piece of paper. I've been journaling, she said. I started after I moved out. Just for me. But I wrote something I want you to have. I unfolded it. It was a letter to her unborn daughter. If you're reading this, I hope you've grown up to be brave. I hope you never let someone tell you who you are, or what you're worth. And I hope you meet people like Brooke. People who fight when they should. People who forgive when they can. People who know that strength is not loud, it's quiet and steady and kind. I didn't speak. Just pulled her into a long, silent hug. Jason tried to destroy me by weaponizing someone else's loyalty. Instead, he gave me something neither of us expected. A friend. An ally. Someone who understood what it means to lose everything and rebuild. From the ashes. And maybe in some twisted way. That's how this legacy lives on. 1 year later, the cabin is mine again. Legally, emotionally, spiritually. I stand on the front porch, Grandpa's porch, and breathe in the mountain air like I've never tasted freedom before. And maybe I haven't, not like this, because peace, I've learned, isn't always quiet. Sometimes peace is what comes after the fire, after the shouting and betrayal, after court dates and confrontation, after you lose people you thought you'd never live without, after you finally stop begging for someone else to do the right thing, and start doing it yourself, no matter how hard it hurts. That's what this cabin taught me. When I inherited, I thought it was just property. A building, land and wood. And old furniture, but I was wrong. It was a test. It was a mirror. It was my grandfather's last lesson. See, Grandpa George didn't just leave me a house in the woods. He left me a boundary. A line between the person I'd been pleasing, tolerating, excusing, and the person I needed to become. The kind who doesn't flinch when the people closest to you show their worst. The kind who says, no, not here. Not anymore. Jason hasn't returned. Not a phone call, not a whisper. Last I heard, he skipped town, ran off to avoid creditors and custody paperwork. Megan's still recovering, picking up the pieces with their son. We talk occasionally, but it's strained, civil, distant. I don't blame her anymore. But I don't let her close, either. Some things you forgive. Some things you file away as warnings. That's called growth. Hazel had her baby in late spring. A girl, Luna. She brought her by last month, wrapped in a yellow blanket, her tiny hands clenched like she was ready to fight the world. She's stubborn, Hazel laughed. Wonder where she gets it from. I smiled. We're building a tribe of women who don't fold easy. Hazel's doing well. She's enrolled in school, staying with her sister. We text often. Sometimes she sends me photos of Luna under the trees, bundled in wildflowers or chasing sunbeams through the garden. We made a promise. No more lies. No more letting other people tell our stories for us. As for the cabin, it's never been more. I repainted the front door deep forest green, Grandpa's favorite color. Refinished the old wood stove. Built shelves for books, for seeds, for memories. The garden out back now grows tomatoes, zucchini, and wild mint. The path down to the lake is lined with solar lights. Hazel and I installed ourselves. And every evening, I light a candle in the window, a ritual, a reminder. This place isn't just mine. It's a living thing, a sanctuary, a boundary, yes, but also a beginning. Sometimes people still ask me why I didn't just sell it. Walk away, take the money and leave all the drama behind. And here's what I tell them: because you don't sell your roots, you don't sell the place that raised you back to yourself. You don't abandon the lesson just because the test was hard. This cabin taught me what love looks like when it's tough, what truth costs when you chase it to the bitter end, what family really means and what it does, and single quotes. Me isn't blood. It's not who shares your last name or your childhood home. Who shows up when it's ugly. Who tells you the truth, even when it shakes you. Who says, I see you. I believe you. Let's build something better. Now I write. I fix things. I plan things. I leave the front door open when the sun's out and shut it tight. When it's not, I sleep without fear. I wake up with purpose, and I know deeply that I fought for this life. That I earned it, that no one will ever walk into my home again and tell me I don't belong. To anyone reading this, wondering if they should hold their ground, do it. You'll lose people. You'll feel alone, but you will gain yourself, and that's the real inheritance.